Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, welcome to another exciting edition of ESQ Practical Lawyers Academy free webinar series. Hope you all enjoyed your weekend. My name is Susan Agu, and I am a research and development staff of ESQ Training Limited. At ESQ Training Limited, our mission is to expand the frontiers of continuous professional learning, and we achieve this by providing the highest quality accredited professional education in a variety of formats, lawyers, accountants, experts, oil and gas experts, and other professionals. We have courses and trainings across various areas of practice, which we have categorized into academies like Litigation and Other, Dispute Resolution Academy, Intellectual Property Academy, Oil and Gas Academy, Sports Academy, Media and Entertainment Law Academy, Capital Market Academy, and among. Hello? We have tagged this webinar series Launch Our Webinar Series as they are slated to hold by 1 p.m. during lunch break. They will hold 3 times every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. However, in order to accommodate our Muslim participants, the Friday webinars will hold at 11 a.m. After every session, we will provide resources in easily accessible formats on the go for everyone who is interested. Currently, registration is ongoing for our training on power. It is a 12-week virtual distance learning course titled The Dynamics of Power Contracts, Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation, and Project Financing, and it commences on the 16th of February 2021, and you do not want to miss it. To get more information about all this, please send a mail to o.solanke@esq-law.com. And if you didn't get this email, you can check the comment section. I would put it there for those who didn't get it. The topic for today's webinar is cryptocurrency regulation in Nigeria, legal and economic consideration. The year 2020 was a year filled with many revelations and happenings, and a lot of sectors were affected, including this year 2021. And now with the CBN directives on cryptocurrency, the livelihood of individuals are at stake. Today we would be taking a look at the recent trends and developments in cryptocurrency and a projection of how the future of cryptocurrency in Nigeria will be. Our seasoned facilitators will also advise professionals on new industry trends and skills to flow into the new normal. We'll be looking at how cryptocurrency can structure its compliance operation to mitigate risk and keep in compliance with evolving regulation, the role of self-regulation, managing cryptocurrency compliance amid global regulatory apathy, how crypto businesses can secure positive relationships with the banking, how recent developments from the Financial Action Task Force and Office of Foreign Asset Control and other bodies are likely to impact the crypto compliance space, and how the compliance officers can respond. Can cryptocurrency and other virtual asset trading be regulated, and so on. If you have any questions while the webinar is going on, please type them in the Q&A session or raise your hand. It will be a great delight that I introduce the chair and moderator of today's webinar. She is Mrs. Courtney Vaughn. Courtney Ashley Vaughn is the principal. Courtney Ashley Vaughn is the principal. Uh, Courtney Ashley Vaughn, she's going to be the moderator of today's webinar. She's the principal advisor of 16-year-old Washington-based boutique strategy consulting firm, agriculture and communication. She has over 20 years of experience advising government, private and financial sector institutions in over 40 countries. She advises boards, C-suite executives, and entrepreneurs on transformation, growth strategies, cross-border finance, debt restructuring, sovereign debt, risk mitigation, financial instruments, innovative financial technologies, and markets. She also advises emerging and frontier market stakeholders on the implication of macroeconomic and financial sector vulnerability on industry. Ms. Vaughn has served as a special economic advisor consultant to the World Bank and managing director of a full-service economic consulting firm. She also served 4 Wall Street-based financial institutions, including Chase Bank and Bank of New York. She's lectured in fields of finance and mathematics at George Washington University and the State University of New York. Respectively, she participated and moderated panels on strategy, investment, fintech, cybersecurity, and economic transformation over the last decade. There is a whole lot more to say about the chief moderator today, but with this few introduction, we'll be glad to have you and on the floor to moderate this webinar. Thank you. Ms.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to all the invitees, delegates, and panelists. And thank you very much, Ms. Chidinma, for that extensive introduction.
You're welcome.
Okay, as you know, this is part of the In Conversation series on the ESQ Practical Academy virtual platform, and I would like to just say a special thank you to your team, Chidinma, as well as to Mr. Larry Fishola for inviting me to moderate this session on cryptocurrency and other virtual assets regulations in Nigeria, focusing on legal and economic considerations. And we will try to ensure that in the probably 50 minutes or so that we have, that we will include and deliver in all the various sub areas that you actually included in your summary that this particular session will cover. We have here to join the conversation 5 esteemed professionals in the cryptocurrency and blockchain fintech space. Welcome to you panelists. We are hoping really that the takeaway from today's session will provide a better understanding of the recent central bank announcement restricting banks from facilitating transactions, and we're speaking about specifically savings banks in the cryptocurrency, and also to perhaps address the concerns of the various stakeholders, which would include the especially the cryptocurrency exchanges in Nigeria, since I believe that this particular central bank policy has barred banks from banking the cryptocurrency exchanges, and also to get some perspective or insight as to how the banks are really handling this restriction, and what are the the concerns of the various customers, and also their own relationship with other banks, and also specifically about the challenges, any potential challenges or constraints or risk that the various stakeholders or providing and facilitating cryptocurrencies in Nigeria is facing. Okay, so thank you again for the opportunity, and let me introduce the first speaker, and I am hoping that each of the speaker can take around 1 minute or 2 minutes. You probably will have around 3.5 minutes collectively to answer questions. And also we are hoping we'll still have 10 minutes for Q&A. Okay, so persons, go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat box. So whoever is overseeing that area can ask the questions, or I can ask the questions in the spirit of managing the conversation. So start putting in your questions as soon as possible. So here is my first question again, and it's to all of the 4 panelists in Nigeria. We also have Tim Webb out in Singapore, who also is the CEO of Power Corp, that is a Hong Kong-based company with US legs, okay? So this question will be a little bit different for him, okay? So the first question is, so what are the immediate challenges, right, that the banks and the cryptocurrency exchanges faced in Nigeria and is still facing as a result of this particular policy, central bank policy. And I'm hoping that the first person that can answer that question actually is Mr. Give me a moment. I think his name is Mr. Ihenye, who is the president of SIBAN, which is Stakeholders in Blockchain Association of Nigeria. And sir, the question is to you first, because I feel with this, that particular association, you would obviously have bankers and blockchain companies and cryptocurrencies and other stakeholders who are members of that organization. So you probably would be in a position where you would hear, your ears would be to the ground to hear what it is they're experiencing. So Senator Iyeri is his first name, specializes in information technology and intellectual property law. So he's actually a lawyer. He is a thought leader in both areas. And he also is an expert on data protection and privacy for Nigeria. He advises local and foreign clients on data protection and privacy. So you see his experience is not just for Nigerian clients, and he's tech savvy and works with innovators in the technology space, from intellectual property driven innovations to disruptive decentralized ledger technology powered innovations. He advises and consults for a number of players in the technology space, including Kurcoin and Kurpay, Paxful and Suri Banker, who are all, I believe, fintech companies. So he's the Vice Chairperson on Policy and Regulations of Stakeholders in Blockchain Technology Association of Nigeria and a trustee on the African ICT Foundation. He's a member of the Information and Communications Technology, Intellectual Property, Entertainment, Sports, etc., and he is barred in Nigeria. Mr. Ihenye, could you answer the first question, and welcome to In Conversation.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm straight up. As soon as the CBN circular got to the industry, it was received with shock by cryptocurrency exchanges in the country, both local and international. It was received with shock by other stakeholders in the industry because before the CBN regulation, we all are aware that there was an initial letter by the CBN in 2017, January specifically, when the CBN said, all right, stay clear of cryptocurrencies in Nigeria. They are susceptible to fraud and all of that. But the CBN didn't stop there. It said that as far as banks, non-financial banks and other financial institutions were concerned, they could still go ahead to render banking and financial services to persons or entities involved in cryptocurrency services or exchanges, as long as those persons comply with anti-money laundering and CFT provisions. So it was with shock that after 4 years or after over 3 years, the CBN would come back to the space or the industry, not to introduce something new, progressive, or developmental, but would then take a retrogressive step by going even further backward than 2017, effectively putting the Nigerian crypto space back to, say, 2010. And we feel that that's not where we should be going at this time. Immediately that circular was issued, as you would expect, bank accounts of some of the cryptocurrency exchanges in Nigeria were closed. Some of these cryptocurrency exchanges, their bank accounts were frozen. They couldn't access anything. Some of the users that they have could not also access their funds. As I speak to you right now, since 5 February, users have been unable to access their funds. And in the press release that we issued, blockchain industry players issued a press release on the 13th February. We appeal to the CBN and other relevant regulators to at least give a reasonable period within which Nigerians and other foreigners who have monies in these accounts, give them enough time, reasonable time, within which to get their money and get it out. So that's where we are, and it's really, really sad. And indigenous cryptocurrency exchanges are the worst hits, as you would understand. They don't have all the funding as their competitors who happen to be global, right? So that's where we are. I guess as time goes on, we'll address other issues.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for that summary. And we definitely, I hope our viewers are learning something, because we have viewers there or from different parts of the world, all the way in Singapore, Jamaica, and a few places who, you know, sometimes you don't want to rely on just public media for information, because you're probably going to end up with the wrong conclusion. So let's just summarize. You said that pretty much the central bank gave the authority to the cryptocurrency, I'm going to say stakeholders, especially the banking institutions, that they could go ahead and participate and facilitate these transactions as long as they stay in compliance with anti-money laundering and all the other various compliance guidelines, right, to protect the banks themselves and also the country. So, and that is really what other countries in the world also are actually advising their financial institutions to do. So this radical approach, and people, I am changing the way we're doing this because of time. Others may not answer the same question. We'll expand on it, okay? So then, the real challenge is there has been a radical approach, and I guess those bank accounts are now frozen. Customers are probably upset. There are a lot of uncertainties. And I could imagine, because these are cryptocurrencies, then you probably have foreigners also who would engage and participate in securing wallets in banks, and also on the cryptocurrency exchanges in Nigeria. And since Nigeria does not have the best perception to the world when it comes on to, unfortunately, you know what, fraud, etc., it doesn't mean that other parts of the world, right, are not actually participating in fraudulent activities and, you know, money laundering, etc. But Nigeria obviously is trying to fix, you know, the perception. So this does not help you at all in that regard, okay? So I am sure the central bank has a reason. I have not heard it as yet. We believe from outside, we're looking in that it is possible, it's not bank account, but crypto accounts, right? Even though they are anonymous, it would be interesting to see, you know, really, if that is part of what they're looking to do, then how are they going about that? Are they getting support from external agents, or do you have the internal capacity in Nigeria to do that and then get on with it? We know that at the stage that that happened, that policy came down in Nigeria, that Nigeria was actually the fastest adopter of cryptocurrency in the world. At least that is what is said. But again, if the legal regulatory framework is not in place, and it is evolving in every country, okay, then you could also be vulnerable to criminals coming, not from inside Nigeria, but outside of Nigeria, persons who are looking to, you know, to hide away from the tax persons, etc. and etc. So why don't we go to Mr. Davidson? What are you hearing, Mr. Davison Uturu from Nigeria, and actually is a partner in the firm's IPTMT, Corporate Commercial and Dispute Resolution Practice Groups, okay? Mr. Uturu, he advises clients on transborder issues related to intellectual property law, information communications technology law, financial technology, which is fintech, and this is part of the fintech space, law, cybersecurity, telecommunications, data protection, privacy, etc., and etc. is a variety of industries. We serve clients in a variety of industries, including the banks, information technology, private equity, financial services, etc., and etc. So with his experience, with in the fintech space on the legal end, but also incorporating the technology side of it. I think he could probably provide some insight as to does he have any information as to how is the government plans to go to do whatever it is they're hoping to do at this time when the banks, those crypto wallets in the banks are frozen. And he can also expand on that, what is it he's hearing from his clients, right? Both the ones who are the technology providers, obviously, that facilitate these sorts of transaction and otherwise. Go ahead, Mr. Oturu.
Thank you, Courtney, and good day to everyone. So moving quickly, I think there's a lot of concern generally in the different communities as to how this impacts on businesses generally. Like a lot of people will know, blockchain technology as well as cryptocurrency has started gaining quite some traction. And people thought that there was a level of understanding on the side of government regarding how to adopt this, how to regulate it. Like in most jurisdictions, of course, there was that uncertainty, there was that concern. Some of the regulators, for instance, the Securities and Exchange Commission, actually took very proactive steps by coming out with certain regulations and frameworks. So late last year, they even classified cryptocurrency as securities and said it would be regulated by them. They did set out some kind of guideline on how that could be approached. And we also did the steps of coming out with comprehensive guidelines. Like Senator will probably say, we had engaged with them last month and spoken to them around proliferation of scams that have been arising within the industry. And we had a task from them to come up with some kind of policy framework that would also assist them in being able to identify scams and carry out some kind of policing of the community. So seeing the Central Bank of Nigeria come out with this was a shock, because we were making the kind of progress we thought was beneficial for the community. The CBN has come out with their own position that, look, they've been hearing a lot going on about terrorist financing, money laundering. There is also the news we've gotten that there may have been some politicians that have been investing in cryptocurrency, and as a result of that, millions of dollars have been moved along those spaces. What the CBN's actions has done is that for a good number of my clients who operate in that space, they've had, in fact, they've been invited, they've been given drafts with the value of their, with the value of what was in their bank accounts, and they've been told to come and take it. So what you're basically saying is people are carrying their operations offshore. For some of the people in the capital market who trade with cryptocurrency as derivatives, they've had to take this down from their platforms. Those who do remittances as well, and we're looking at engaging in that space, have also had to take it out from their platforms. The few of them, of course, that even had virtual wallets, the banks that were hosting those wallets have also closed their wallets. I think what can happen now at this point is engagement. Basically, there has to be that engagement. Again, some of us understand where CBN is coming from. They have to police the financial market. They have to police the use of money, and generally make sure that there's liquidity within the system, such that the currency, the Nigerian currency, doesn't lose value as less people trade in the money market where they're supposed to trade, and then take it offline to cryptocurrency. I believe last week we saw a couple of engagements. The National Assembly has invited the CBN governor to come and explain how this policy is beneficial to Nigeria. The SEC also issued a statement which, well, was probably political in itself, but was basically trying to say, look, we still have the power to regulate cryptocurrency, at least to an extent, within the purviews of the law. But what CBN has basically said is, until they're able to come up with a framework or a policy for how these will be traded within banks or how people will be able to keep their funds, then we cannot interfere in that. Engagement is the way to go. And I think we'll be seeing more of that as the days unfold. Mindful of time, we can move to the next.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for such an extensive, perspective, insight, and, information about some of the facts that's going on. So I tell you, why don't we go to Mr. Let's change this up a little bit and go to Mr. Chiagozi Iwu, who is the founder and CEO of CI Crypto Solutions, a company that owns and operates the Niaja Crypto, which I am assuming is one of the Nigeria's exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges, okay? Because I would imagine that cryptocurrency exchange would have a direct relationship with the bank. And also, I guess they would also, the banks, my understanding actually is that the banks also, according to the policy, are barred from banking, B-A-N-K-I-N-G, and I'm talking about the depository banks, banking these cryptocurrency exchanges. So Mr. Iwu is actually, like I said, the CEO of CI Cryptocurrency Solution and also operates the Niger cryptocurrency exchange and Niger payment gateway, as well as developing blockchain solutions and consulting for other firms. He's a seasoned blockchain enthusiast and possesses an ample experience formulating derivative contracts as portfolio structuring in both cryptocurrency and traditional markets. He has created a cryptocurrency index called BAR W130, which focuses on tailoring the index to cryptocurrency market characteristics and risk. He's a certified blockchain and finance expert with core focus on the financial applications of blockchain technology. Welcome, sir. And just tell us your experience, what have you experienced with this radical approach to the policy, and how has it affected your relationships with the banks in Nigeria? And I would imagine some of the external actors like other cryptocurrency exchanges that you may have engaged with, or also not just in Africa, West Africa, but probably in other places in the world. So tell us what is going on and what is your approach to be able to manage this decision, this sort of situation, so you can, remain sustainable until the law, is carved and the ban has been released or lifted. Go ahead, sir. Is he there? Okay, is he there?
Hello?
Is Mr. Iwu Chiaguzi,
Hello?
is he there? Go
Oh,
ahead.
he's not here. He's in traffic. He's stuck in
Okay,
traffic.
fabulous. Tell him to get on his phone for the next round, okay? Please, sometimes we have to use the telephone. Can you communicate with him?
Okay, I'll try to.
Fabulous, fabulous. Let's move on. So let's bring on the next person then. So we have gone through 2 gentlemen so far, 3, or let's go to Mr. Timothy Webb out there in Singapore. Tim Webb is the CEO of Power Corp, which is a Hong Kong-based cryptocurrency company that owns 2 cryptocurrencies. One is called Pcoin, C-O-I-N, which is in private wallets on the Waves cryptocurrency exchange. And one, I think they just launched live just today on the ChainX, which is a South Korean cryptocurrency exchange. Tim is an American, and there is an American leg to this. We're trying to create a stable coin. And for full disclosure, I am part of the advisory board for this company. Tim is a longtime friend and partner. We have done so many work in the financial services space across the continent of Africa and in over 40 countries around the world, and working on structuring transaction advising on, how to better get financial institution to build up that sort of institutional capacity and capability to actually operate in these modern days. So Tim Webb, why don't you just speak about the situation in Nigeria in the context of the evolving regulations, even in the United States, and what your company has gone through, right? To be able to what I call dodge the regulators, not in a bad way, but in a good way. So you could, you could develop your currency and your associated services and keep in compliance. Because today, part of what we're hoping to get out of this is also the compliance side, right? And what are some of the compliance guidelines, and whether some of these are already in Nigeria or they are to come, right? At least one can shed some lights on those. Go ahead, Tim Webb.
Thank you so very much, Courtney, and for our host for having us. I think the perspective that maybe I can add as it relates, although I'm not in Nigeria, is that these type of activities in any type of new industry which government is slow to catch up to or understand, they tend to, especially bankers, they tend to say no, or they tend to shut everything down, so that they can take time to figure out what they want to do. What I would argue is that, I think the way that they went about doing it is probably the wrong way. You only have to freeze my tokens one time, my account, my money one time. And I guarantee you it'll never happen again. And that's would be one of my concerns, is how does the banking sector with the cryptocurrency community, rebuild that trust. That's why you hear a lot of people talking about put your holdings in cold storage as much as you can. So that way there's a limited amount that you have exposed that could be frozen by any centralized entity, such as a bank or a government entity. For us, I specifically went out to Asia to start our efforts, and I'm purposely going out on an Asian exchange for our company for just these exact reasons. Asia has been a lot more friendlier, and the community has been a lot more aggressive in this space. And so, and they tend not to, at least not many of them, to bend to US regulation as they recognize their own sovereignty. I did want to pick back on something else you said, Courtney. If it was something that was not necessarily all the stakeholders were involved with any kind of fraud or money laundering, whatever, but let's just say there is a big enough group that found its way and used Nigeria as a vehicle without knowing specifically, and depending on how big it is, other governments, Interpol and other things could put pressure on the banking system to say, you just need to freeze everything, and then we'll see, who is aching the most. And if they show their heads, we now got a link on them, and then we'll say to you, okay, unfreeze the accounts and come in with these policies. Because we're doing a little bit of lending against people's Bitcoin and Ethereum at the moment, and then we're going to go to other assets. We're basically having to do KYC and AML procedures. So I would hope that all those exchanges did the same thing, because the one choke point in the ecosystem of the blockchain, and in particular cryptocurrency, more so, is that because you have to interact in the world in a fiat base, the exchanges become the bottleneck. And so, and the banking sector becomes the bottleneck, where the government can't really stop peer-to-peer transactions, but they can stop transactions that are dealing with these larger institutions that they have influence over. And so that's where you'll continue to see more and more regulation. I don't know if you saw in America, they're talking about anyone that's transferring $10,000 worth of crypto from any wallet on an exchange to even your private wallet. They want the exchange to disclose. So the exchanges will be the places where the governments continue to put the most pressure, as long as we continue to operate in fiat currency. Now, once we're able to get some of the other distributions like MasterCard and Visa, which they are, PayPal and others, to allow you to use your their distribution system at points of services, then banks become a little less relevant. And I think banks have to find a way and a strategy to figure out how they're going to operate in this new growing fintech world. That's something that a lot of them are still trying to figure out. And I'll stop there, Courtney. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim Webb, for providing some more perspective and also about what is happening in other places outside the continent of Africa. Which, to be truthful, it's pretty much the same. Maybe we have not yet caught up, with some of those restrictions in Nigeria, but they are to come. If one notices that the United States was, to be truthful, is a country that was probably furthest behind in terms of opening up or providing the opportunity for banking institutions in particular to be able to play in that space. Recently, I would imagine, I think it's over 2 months ago or within 2 months ago, the Office of the Controller of the Currency or US Treasury, actually, they had a new bank rule, right? They ruled that the banks in the American can now become custodians of cryptocurrencies. So that's a big signal that was sent out there that America is now ready to play. Also, if you notice payment technology companies like PayPal, in your private or your individual PayPal account, you can go up there and buy and sell cryptocurrencies, okay? So we were the ones who were very slow to roll out because of many reasons. The American financial services industry is so interconnected and it is so deep and huge. And as Mr. One of the speakers said a little earlier on, I am under the impression that Nigeria also coming out of the probably around 2006 or so, just say transformation or reconstruction of the Nigeria financial services industry, which comprised in those days of mostly banks that were family-owned banks and some state banks and so on, right? And because of the central bank regulation, the banks had to shore up their capital, so the private place and when public had become more transparent, that sort of thing. And then came the 2008 financial crisis in the United States that spilled over the rest of the world, including Nigeria. And in 2010, we can see where Nigerian banks got in trouble. There was consolidation, et cetera, and et cetera. Some banks went under receivership, some of them died. And here, Nigeria has expanded. In those, I think around 2010 as well, Nigeria also started to privatize pension, which the pension is a subsector of the financial services industry and insurance to diversify and grow up insurance and stock exchanges activities and so on and so forth. So this particular policy would have implications, I would imagine, to those various subsectors of the financial services industry. But most importantly, the concern for microfinance institutions and probably credit union and smaller financial institution in the financial services industry, I can imagine how hard hit they were from this particular policy, given that today the world and especially African countries are looking to have more inclusion, to provide more equity and to be able to support individuals and micro enterprises. And I did hear that coming out of some of the conversation with one of our speaker here. And that is really what we need, to think about when one is looking at the economic implications of this. Earlier, the young lady did say that we should look at the economic aspect of it. That can have like a tremendous impetus in terms of stagnation and actually regression in that old micro enterprise and small business space that Nigeria has actually put a lot of time, and struggled, to start to enable them to be more included. And as the gentleman earlier said, these companies may not have, or persons, the sort of liquidity to keep themselves sustained. Once upon a time, we're talking maybe probably 10, 15 years ago, Nigeria had over 500 micro enterprises, and especially coming out of the 2006 or so change in regulation for the banking institution, some of those banks that died actually went over to form microfinance institution. And I heard that it grew since then. So we will come back to that because I think that is where one will see the real impetus, right? And the ramification if the central bank doesn't have some strategy in place to be able to go back and to enable and to help those institutions to remain stable. I also gathered that the banks, even though they were hit with such a radical policy, but persons are able to probably exchange their crypto coins for, is it for some other, they're able to get out of it. There is an exit there. Can one of you gentlemen, and I'm going to see if probably Mr., let's see what his name, Mr. Olumide Babalola can shed some light on that. Are these customers able to get out of their positions I heard some sort of financial paper was given. Is it in Naira? Is it in hard currency? And what about the foreign accounts holder, the foreign account crypto holders, right? Can you speak a little bit about that, or about anything that grabs you from what the other participants have said? You can expand or even subtract from the questions that were already posed. And Mr. Olumide Babalola, welcome, sir. And he is a prolific and consummate digital rights, consumer rights, privacy, and data protection lawyer. His rich and diverse digital rights litigation experience spans across all superior courts of records in Nigeria and regional courts in Africa, including the Economic Community of West African State, Community Court of Justice. And for those who do not know the Economic Community of West African State, ECOWAS, it is the regional institution in Nigeria that does a lot of economic development and other activities. And you could see that they also have a court. So he has not just local, but regional, the West African sub-region experience. He has specifically litigated on digital privacy, cybercrime, hate speech, freedom of information, online freedom of expression, passage of laws protecting digital rights, among others. He also is a seasoned conference speaker, as he's doing right now, at local and international fora. In 2018, he was selected alongside 6 other digital rights lawyers from West Africa to attend the Internet Governance Forum in Paris, a multi-stakeholder engagement forum. In June 2019, he also spoke at the RightsCon, the 8th annual summit on human rights in the digital age held in Tunis. Okay, and those who do not know where Tunis is, I think it's the capital of Tunisia. So Mr. Olumide is also the managing partner of Olumide Babalola LP, is flagship full service law office with particular biases, again, for digital rights, etc. and etc. So sir, can you grace us with your perspectives and provide us some insights to any of the questions or the ones that I asked you to do specifically?
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for the...
You're welcome.
Yes, my brothers have spoken earlier. Senator, who is a stakeholder, I mean, a strong stakeholder in the crypto industry, and as well as Davidson, who is also a renowned fintech lawyer. But the perspective I want to bring to this is, while I agree with Davidson that we need to do a whole lot of engagement, because for a while, the regulators have looked confused as to how to approach this hydra-headed situation. I mean, we have not learned from how other countries have approached it. And first of all, I would even like a situation where the regulators would agree within themselves, within whose jurisdiction cryptocurrencies lie. Is it a legal tender, which we all know it is not? Is it securities, which takes it within the regulatory purview of the Securities and Exchange Commission? So when we're able to agree on that, then we would now be able to discover and decide whether the Central Bank of Nigeria can validly stop people from dealing in crypto. Now, if it is not within your regulatory jurisdiction, then you shouldn't ordinarily ban people from dealing in crypto. If all you are supposed to deal with are legal tenders, and we all agree that crypto is not a legal tender, then why would you stop people? And with the antecedent of law enforcement agencies in Nigeria, with the antecedent of regulatory agencies in Nigeria, dealing in cryptocurrency is now viewed as an offense. Because if there is no law that sees it as an offense, why would you close dealers' accounts? Why would you close exchanges account? I understand accounts are closed, the monies are withheld, other accounts are frozen, and there is no law as we speak that outlaws or that makes it an illegal thing to do when you exchange crypto. I think that should be the first port of call. What CBN has done is not even a policy, is not even a guideline, is not even a regulation. With respect to them, and in my opinion, all they have just done is to write banks to begin to close accounts. Is that letter, is it regulation? Perhaps they will be able to explain to us. Is that letter a policy document? They will be able to explain to us. Now, if they are writing people to close accounts, on what legal basis? Is there a law that criminalizes dealing in crypto? Now, with the antecedent of the country, policemen will start using that letter as a license to arrest owners and dealers in cryptocurrency. So I think first thing first, Nigeria has to decide what cryptocurrencies are. So when we decide, we know who to regulate and we know how to regulate. That is if they even intend to regulate. Sadly, we saw a video that was circulated about last week, I think so. One of our legislators, with respect to them, I understand cryptocurrencies are very technical. Even for lawyers, we need to keep reading because it keeps evolving. Now, in some quarters, it's been seen as a stock that can be created. I mean, a couple of minutes ago, you told us Mr. Timwe created a new coin. So I can wake up tomorrow if I have the capacity and also create a coin. Just the same way companies issue stocks. The same way anybody can set up a company and immediately there are stocks to be purchased. There are equities to be purchased. There are shares to be sold and to be bought. It could be viewed in that light. If it is viewed in that light, then would our CBN be able to regulate stocks? So first of all, we need to understand what cryptos are. The regulators don't seem to understand, or they have not taken a position. CBN wrote a letter in 2017 warning people to stay clear. At that point, they didn't say it is illegal. They wrote a subsequent letter warning investors to stay clear. Same thing SEC did. They are warning us to stay clear. They're telling us the nature of crypto, but they did not say it is illegal. Now they woke up in 2021 and they issue a statement, they issue a letter asking people's account to be closed without you, first of all, deciding what cryptocurrencies are. As we speak today, Nigeria does not have a policy as to what those things are. What are they? So all of us will still be speculating as far as Nigeria is concerned. Anyways, this matter is in court. I can't speak so much about it, but we are all interested to see what our courts will pronounce cryptocurrencies to be. The American courts, some of the American courts have pronounced it as securities. Even the American Security Exchange Commission clearly came out and said they are securities, although some officials of the commission are saying they are not cryptocurrencies. But whatever it is, we understand they are digital assets. If they are assets, they are not necessarily legal tender. So first of all, my perspective is Nigeria needs to take a position on what legal tenders are. And maybe the case we have in court would lead us into what they are. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much for sharing that perspective, Mr. Olumide. It's a very, very important perspective. And many countries are in the same position. They have actually started right there. Some countries were very late to allow, like I said, financial institutions to participate in the cryptocurrency space for those very reasons. We may know that the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, which is the first encrypted digital currencies, because there were all sorts of virtual currencies and digital currencies long before Bitcoin was created. It again is the first encrypted cryptocurrency, and they claimed that in 2008, an unknown personal group of people using the name Nakamoto were the guys who, I guess, provided this white paper that just went viral, and a couple of guys went out and started to create the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Now, from my perspective and from my research, I believe that those guys, we know the reason is they claim they didn't trust the banking institutions. And we know 2008, US banking institution, the financial sector took a big dive because of many reasons, including some unscrupulous practices. Okay, that's not the only reason. Now, they wanted to do good, these young fellas. They wanted to have more inclusion, you know, and to be able to help, you know, persons who transact business to, you know, to move away from the heavy bank fees, et cetera, and et cetera. So the digital currency, from my experience, again, and perspective, was created as a money, something to transact, you know, between buying goods and services. And that's what people do with money. Of course, money has many other purposes, but that was it. So a lot of those guys went to prison because if you're creating money and you're using money, one has to know in the context of the country that now you have a money, something that is considered money, competing with the sovereign currency of a country. So they did not have the perspective about what central banks do, their obligation to manage the money supply, and also the global aspect of that sort of thing. So a lot of people got in trouble, but since then, we have come a long way. In the United States, and Tim could speak more to that, that there was some confusion about whether cryptocurrency was a money, commodity, or a securities. And from what I have seen, some of the cryptocurrency companies, when they put together their offering, you know, to raise capital, you know, to be able to develop better or to expand, etc., they were using terminologies in their offering document that were more geared towards securities. And that's when the SEC came in on them. Tim can speak a little bit about that, but today it is very clear that at least in the US context and some other country context, cryptocurrency is money. It is not securities. And I feel maybe not today, but tomorrow, Nigeria will fall in line, especially because that's what your people have been using it for predominantly, to transact business. Also, because the over 30 something countries in the world is now making their own cryptocurrency, central bank digital currency, okay? So they can also fall in line because the world is going digital, and many other reasons why fiat money probably will become not so important in the future. We see that even China has recently issued its own, the first sovereign currency, because we know cryptocurrencies are not sovereign currencies, okay? So the first central bank sovereign currency, we know that Kenya did the M-Pesa, but it was not a sovereign currency, okay? It's Kenya shilling is still the sovereign currency. So in that regard, I feel that Nigerian government will definitely go towards, you know, to say these cryptocurrencies are, these are monies, and guess what? Put the rules around and get in line, because it's a huge country, huge economy, and one has to be able to do international trade and local things, etc. And eventually, just the way the US dollar is the international currency of exchange, right? One of those sovereign currency may have to be that. Probably it's a Chinese, who knows, right? But I think that the Nigerian government they do have a huge, you know, like big things to think about. But obviously, sir, you're correct. They need to define what it is in the country. Hopefully, they go with all the other players and they can develop the appropriate legal regulatory framework to be able to govern those. Thank you so much for your time. Is Mr. The other gentleman from the exchange, is he in as yet? What's her name, young lady? Is he in as yet? If he is not, is he in as yet, Miss Agu?
No, he's not here.
Okay, so listen, in the spirit of time, let's go to some questions and answer. And maybe offline, Tim Webb and some of the other guys can brainstorm a little bit more. Let's see. I see that there's some at least comments or questions and answers in the chat box here. Let's see what we have here. Okay, those are comments. Thank you very much for the kind words and comments. Here's a question from Monique Williams. Thank you so much for hosting such informative event. My question is, since the banks have to desist from transacting in cryptocurrencies, and you imagine that Nigerian banks perhaps are holding crypto accounts for foreigners as well. Yeah, that's a question, and she's a foreigner actually from another country. Are those account holders making any particular demand from the banks? Fabulous question. Any one of the panelists, can you shed some light on that? Anybody who you know, have some answers to that? Gentlemen?
Well, we are aware that apart from Nigerian citizens, there are also foreigners who have wallets and other accounts with these Nigerian-owned cryptocurrency exchanges. Also, there, apart from the Nigerian or indigenous cryptocurrency exchange services, we also have those global brands who have Nigerian entities. We are aware that there are foreigners who also have their monies stocked in those accounts. Now, how that has been done so far, two ways. The central bank, from our engagement so far, we understand that for now, they will not be reviewing that until further notice. But meanwhile, we have advised all of our members in our capacity as the blockchain industry coordinating committee of Nigeria, and it's a community working group in the country. We have advised that while we explore all of the options made available to us from the regulatory and the lawmaking end, we should have a situation where persons as individuals should be able to contact their services providers to at least make a claim, all right? And then service providers can also submit those claims to the banks. From some of the private banks and non-financial and other financial institutions we have reached out to, our understanding is that they haven't frozen these accounts. Our understanding is that they only close the accounts. And we have told them that what they need to do is to allow persons be able to access their funds. The CBN letter, unfortunately, did not give any procedure as to how these banks or other financial institutions would go about closing accounts. As a matter of fact, it's emphasized immediately. And we, as stakeholders in the industry, immediately that letter came out, 5 February, we saw disaster ahead, because this is Nigeria, where persons hardly, show respect for customers. Persons hardly show respect for the rule of law, and so people take advantage of these things to perpetrate all sorts of illegalities. And in the press release or in the press statement that we issued on 13th February, we emphasized there that the CBN should immediately, use its powers and authorities to reach out to the entities it regulates and tell them how to properly go about closing people's accounts if they have to even close at all. Even though on legal grounds, we have our own issues with whether the CBN could do what it did. Just like Olumide Babalola was saying very correctly, if you ask me, the question is not a cryptocurrency question. It's larger than that. For us, even though we are cryptocurrency stakeholders, we think that the question is, can the central bank of a country decide without any legislation, say that an entire industry should be denied banking and financial services? That's the bigger question. So right now, people say it's crypto, they are scammers, they are terrorists, they should all get out of here. But tomorrow, the same CBN could come up and say, this other industry, we think that you guys are scammers. We don't even understand what you guys are doing anyway. You look like Ponzi schemers. Therefore, all of our banks and financial institutions henceforth do not give banking services to these people. We think that that is a legislative question. We do not think that it's a regulatory question. And this is one of the things that we hope that the National Assembly of Nigeria will also be looking at when it invites the governor of the central bank and the director general of the SEC to the National Assembly. It's a critical question.
So we have 30 more minutes.
It's a constitutional question.
30 more minutes.
Can the central bank of a country deny an industry entirely access to banking and financial services? It's a huge question. We think that it should not be able to do so. If there are any powers in the statutes that enable the CBN or any central bank to do that, we feel that it needs to be reviewed. But like more so, if you look at the Nigerian laws regarding AML and anti-terrorism, you find that it didn't give any regulator or law enforcement so much power as to approach things in a blanket manner. What is expected is that you would have carried out investigations to be able to fish out the scammers and all those guys you say are using cryptocurrencies illegally. You don't just come to the space and drop a blanket decision saying get everyone out, whether they've been using cryptocurrencies legally or illegally. And as persons who are industry stakeholders, as much as we respect what the CBN is doing, as much as we acknowledge that it needs to ensure a sound financial system that is safe for consumers and investors, we also believe that there's a better approach to it. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot that cryptocurrency exchanges and other industry players can do to help CBN and other stakeholders. In January, we set up an anti-scam committee that's looking at this already, and we have a lot of insights we can share. The problem we have, fundamental issue, not just in Nigeria, but in most developing countries in the world, is that there is the lack of respect for stakeholders. There's a lack of carrying stakeholders along. I've said a lot in the country that regulators need to be more collaborative. Regulators need to be more developmental and innovative about stuff. They need to carry stakeholders along so that we can do this together. The country belongs to all of us. And as much as we respect regulators, we know that they have a lot of data they are working with. We think that there's a lot we can share and solve this stuff together. If you ask me, what the CBN has done is going to achieve exactly the opposite of what it intends to achieve. Because right now, the banking, when you cut out an entire industry from the banking or financial service system, what you're doing, whether you like it or not, you're turning the whole thing to a black market. And you know what happens in the black market? You're turning the biggest crypto market in Africa, and based on BTC volume on Paxful, second to the US, you're turning it to an informal economy. You can't say you're not getting FDI and all the remittances, and then you turn around and then shut them out. That's not what to do. We think that rather than take that drastic approach, what you could do is just look at the situation, identify the risk properly, look at the threat well. Also focus on the opportunities too. There are opportunities that cryptocurrencies provide, and then see how you can manage the affair. All over the world, it's been a risk-based approach. It's been a risk-based approach. And even China and Saudi Arabia and all of those countries that the CBN was citing or citing in its press statements, with all due respect, some of those information are quite agreeable. With all due respect, they are not very accurate. Some of them are like 2016 information. That we've gone beyond that. In the last 5 years, Nigeria has made massive. There have been massive developments in the space. What regulators need to do is just to stop being czar everywhere and see this as the collaborative work in fixing the system together.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for such an extensive perspective and, making recommendation, because part of what we're doing here in these sorts of sessions is to provide our perspective. And obviously there will be a certain amount of criticism, but to make it constructive and to offer recommendation. So thank you for taking us to that. And let's see if we can have Tim Webb. Do you want to address what was just said? Because from my experience, the central bank pretty much can do whatever they want to do. It is true that there are certain things that must go to the legislature. We know that. But in a situation, if they believe that something is a threat, right? If there is really a threat in there, they can take radical approaches, and it has been done all over the world. It is true that the economic ramification of this, right, is going to be disastrous, and it will be, but that probably is they're willing to eat that cost. You know what I'm saying? Until Nigeria can recover. Of course, the whole idea of trust and transparency goes all ways, or both ways, in terms of the industry and the authorities, etc. Right? So obviously, what was done, that radical approach versus a gradual approach, and probably, as the gentleman say, to get other governmental bodies involved, you know, to get it all the way to they call it parliament in some countries, or to where the legislators are working for the people. That obviously those things need to be coordinated a little bit, or a lot more better in Nigeria, not just in this space, but in a lot of spaces. So Tim, can you address the issue? And in the United States, could the central bank, if there is indeed a threat to the economy, right, or a threat to the system, whether it's anti-money laundering or some fraudulent activities or otherwise, could they have stepped in and done what was done without taking it to get other authorities involved and making it law or legislation?
Because of the way that I don't know if can you hear me? Okay. Because of the way our government is set up, they absolutely could do it, because it's under the federal, and all they have to do is just call the president's office, and he can enact any type of powers that the president has over the federal branch, which is where that falls. So the answer to your question is yes, they can do it. Now, can it be challenged and so on and so forth? Yes. I think this is one of the situations where Nigeria government is saying, we won't ask for permission. We'll ask for, forgiveness after this is done. So, I don't know how big the danger is. We're not sitting on that data. But I mean, the panelists here are very qualified as it relates to addressing this and fighting for, the whole notion of cryptocurrency and its use. I had my hand raised because I wanted to drill down a colleague that was talking about defining what cryptocurrency is. I think is very important. And I would argue that if in any way Nigeria can think about it from how this tool is helping its society and its economy, and not necessarily copy what other countries are doing, because remember, they have other value sets and they have other reasons. I mean, at one point, I keep saying to folks, we didn't have a dollar bill, and people thought a dollar bill, paper money, was, as good as toilet paper. And eventually we ended up going to paper money. So the same thing is happening with the digitization of money. It will be there. I just think that a lot of the people in our ecosystem in cryptocurrency, they just adapted. And you pointed it out, Courtney. They adapted the language. I wish we would have never gone to exchanges, because exchanges became, and they modeled them right off of security exchanges, not necessarily like commodity exchanges. And because of that, they now use language and brought themselves into a situation that they are now. But blockchain and cryptocurrency has found itself to be a real solution. How can you tell me if I have 3 eggs and a technology called the blockchain lets me digitize it, and now I can put that literal item across the world, that it is some money or some currency. Currency comes in different forms. It always has. So you're seeing, a system built on a certain amount of realities, trying to adapt to a system that's dealing with a new realities, where most of us are now talking and operating from our phones. I mean, when you walk down the street and you see everybody with a mask on, you're like, is this really, I see this on TV, but is this real? And so cryptocurrency is having the same issue. But I would really, that question of definition is very important. And I think it's more than just defining it around what other countries are doing. Is it money? Is it security? But the question is this tool actually allowing us to, I always argued, a person in America with the same skills, same lawyer, same engineer, why should this lawyer make 10 times more because they're in the United States with the same intellect as someone in Nigeria with the same intellect? Why? For what reason? Makes no sense. This kind of currency that's kind of global in its measurement allows now that person sitting in Nigeria that has the tech skills can actually get a coin that's valued the same way in Nigeria as it is in US, and can feed their family and find work if indeed their global economy is not doing as well as they'd like. So I'm really a proponent of that, getting that definition. I do believe that it is overreaching unless there was a real present danger that we don't know about. But I really do think that, they probably should have found a better way to do that. And trust me, entrepreneurs, business people will never trust the government again. That's why they always told you, those that are in privacy know this. They say, when you put your tokens on an exchange, make sure every night you pull the majority of it off, or only leave that which you want to trade with in that day available, and the rest of it needs to sit in your cold storage. If it was sitting in your cold storage and you had 1,000 coins and you only trade 100 a day, 900 of them would be safe away from this whole situation, and you could have found other exits in other ways. So also let this be a guide about how you actually engage this economy, and you engage these exchanges that are definitely going to be regulated by government no matter where you go, because government's trying to find this ground. It knows what's coming, and it's doing the best that it can to slow it down and choke it until it can get its arms around it, because decentralization is not something that everyone's used to or even interested in. So that's all I wanted to add, Courtney.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I think, thank you, that was very, very insightful to provide your perspective as well as what's going on in other places. But Tim, can you speak, because I recall that there was a request in the overall, I'm going to say, description of this particular conference, that they want to address decentralized and centralized systems in context to cryptocurrency. Can you speak to that? And also, since one of the speakers had said something about the coins, right? And that it's possible that anyone could just make a coin and put it up there. Just speak about the experience you have had and how difficult it is to do that when you're trying to build a sustainable company, that sometimes it can take you 3 years to show your face on the live exchange because you have credibility. Just speak a little bit, expand on that. And
yeah,
then
so
go ahead.
Yeah, so the decentralization part is exactly that. There is no institution or third party that's dictating, how, or sitting in the middle of these particular transactions. And so, there are some exchanges, for example, that they don't take people's actual wallets. Your currency doesn't sit on their servers. It actually always stays with you, and they build their systems in that particular way. That's more of a decentralized situation. Whereas when you have one that's more centralized, that like you saw the ones that got hacked, that's because all of the people's assets, their accounts, were sitting on their servers, and because they failed to secure them, or there was a hole in their programming that someone exploited, they were able to do that. So I use that as an example just to give you what we're talking about. Decentralized is exactly what I said. If what is valuable is some new, let's say, species of animal that we found, and it's very valuable, and it creates something that's valuable to the food chain that people want, a person should be able to utilize that, digitize it, and exchange that value wherever they want to, without somebody else dictating to them what the value is or isn't. We have enough technology and enough smarts to allow people to come up with, we've been bartering since the beginning of time. So for me, this is all just bartering and being digitized when you decentralize it. You got to remember, banking, I don't know if people realize the history from a European standpoint. Banking came from basically the wealthy kings and queens and persons that were traveling from one part of Europe to the other, and they couldn't haul all that gold with them. So the folks you may know, called the Knights Templar, said they would keep them secure, and then when they got to the new place, they basically would issue them a certificate that said, yes, my safe holdings are back in this area, and so my ticket is good for you. So it comes from different contexts, and which is why I'm asking for those in Africa and of African descent to really think about how this tool empowers your folks. Now, in terms of starting a token, anybody can start a token is very true, but to actually make it into a sustainable business is as hard as anything else. One of the reasons why is because people just jumped in it just like they did the .com age blindly. And because of that, they judge you by the one or two success stories as opposed to looking at the fundamentals and the strengths of your company. So although it is true, people can create these tokens and put them out there in the marketplace. It's not so easy to create. Create a sustainable company behind it. All the fundamentals in business still exist for people to overcome in that instance. So like any new industry, those that are smart and that are clever, they come in and they exploit it until its maturity. And I think blockchain or Bitcoin is a little bit over a decade old. And so, therefore it is maturing. It's come a long way, and it will continue as long as we continue to have the type of community that I see represented on this panel and others that are fighting for the ability for people to be able to do, free trade, to be able to utilize this tool called the blockchain and crypto in order to create economic benefits to themselves and their community. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Tim Webb. So, Mr. David Oturu, would you like to add something while we wait for Mr. Iwu? We're still waiting for Mr. Iwu. Dinma, do you have any update about Mr. Iwu? Is he going to make the conference? We have just around 13 minutes, and we're still taking questions, or just if somebody just wants to offer some perspective, you can go ahead and do that. I see that there are many persons who are part of the delegate invitees. They're there, so please feel free, to wave your hand or just jot a question down. Or if for some compelling reason you believe you would like to hear your voice heard, you can also try to get access to that. So, Mr. David Oturu, is there any particular additional insights you would like to offer?
Well, I think most of the speakers have covered the very wide gamut of what was on the table for today. I do see a question where somebody was asking about
Ellen.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty obvious question, really. Will the world embrace it because of Elon Musk? I think that's still up in the air, because some people will still regard him as being very eccentric. But we do know that following his decision, I mean, the price of Bitcoin went through the roof, right? From less than $40,000 to almost $50,000. So clearly his decision moved the needle a long way. Whether the entire world would, because of that, embrace cryptocurrency is another kettle of fish entirely, especially if you have your traditional banking institutions feeling threatened by cryptocurrency and other virtual assets. Some of them may consider that it could impact negatively on their bottom line. And typically you will see central banks usually being on the side of the big banks because of the role that they played in the community. So it will take a while for that acceptance to definitely come into play, but definitely his investment has led to quite a shift in the price of Bitcoin generally. I still believe, though, that there's still a lot that the banks can do and can also learn from cryptocurrency as well as the blockchain space. They can also provide some services to that space as well. They can even play the role of a custodian You know, they can provide custodian services. They can get more involved in DLT, that is distributed ledger technology, by working with some of these cryptocurrency folks, as well as operating with the blockchain. Yeah, in terms of KYC, AML, I believe that if they feel some of these companies don't have the right procedures around that, there is room for collaboration as well. But with the blockchain, funny enough, it even makes it easier to track transactions. It's a very secure system that banks can even adopt, and again, further collaborate with cryptocurrency operators. So I think that there's a lot of room in the fintech and financial space for there to be quite some collaboration going on in that space. In terms of regulation, I mean, and here's where I stand, because quite a lot has been said, oh, can CBN do this? Can CBN do that? Then I think CBN has been very careful in how they approach this. If you look at the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act of Nigeria, which we call BOFIA, it empowers the Central Bank of Nigeria to impose conditions on banks, you know, and other financial institutions that comes under its purview. And when the CBN comes out with these guidelines and policies, banks are compelled to obey immediately. So I think for most of them, they are in that place of, we don't want to fall. The question of whether CBN issued a letter, and if it has the power of a circular or whether it has the power of a regulation, is not what the banks will want to debate, because if the law already empowers CBN to direct them to do certain things, then it doesn't matter to them if CBN goes on the radio, on the TV, on YouTube, publishes it in the papers, on its website, or anywhere. Once it gives that directive, then they have an obligation to obey it. And I think that's where they find themselves, right? You know, in that place where you comply or you get sanctioned. And I don't think there's any bank that would want to put themselves in that place where, because of cryptocurrency exchanges and operators, they would want their license to be revoked, or they would want to challenge the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's not just in their best interest, to be honest. So I wanted to just put that out there as well.
Mr. Olumide Babalola, could you expand on that, on what Mr. Davison had just said?
Thank you very much.
About the diversification of the banking services leveraging cryptocurrency and the blockchain, which in fact is what PowerCoin is all about. We have not just created a coin that goes live and, you know, it's all market demand. We have created a coin because traditionally we are persons who bring money into the system, whether it's for huge opportunities or small opportunities, etc. And we realize that there need to be a little bit more inclusion, so smaller companies, etc., can access the financial system and they can get liquidity to do what needs to be done in business. And African countries are the ones, to me, from my experience, that have had the least involvement. So the coin actually, we also have an alternative lending window. And if we have time, Tim Webb can speak to that. But go ahead, Mr. Olumide. Please provide your perspective, recommendation, and insight, because we're coming close to the end of our session.
Thank you very much. So we should understand the far-reaching effect of CBN's letter. I agree with Davidson that yes, the CBN can even announce at a conference like they did with the fintech directive to banks to begin to share data with fintechs. They announced it at a conference, and banks were already thinking of how to comply, even without writing letters, before we approached the court, and they came up with their new sandbox framework. So we need to look at the far-reaching effect of you just writing a letter and asking banks to close accounts. So I'm not talking about even stopping the transaction, not allowing the transaction to flow. How do you close my account and you freeze my account by a letter? that's taking it above board. That's my respectful position on this, because if you are to sanction dealers in cryptocurrencies, then that sanction has to be backed by law. So if you ask banks not to process my transaction, I might even understand. But you asking banks to close my account without remedy, that is taking it too far. It is taking it too far, and you are doing that with a letter. You are criminalizing my dealing in cryptocurrency. So it means that if I deal in cryptocurrency, I have done something prohibited by law. And the question is, where is the law prohibiting this thing? Now, so if I buy a car and the money to buy a car is transferred through my account, and CBN wakes up and decides to say that anybody that buys a car and transacts with the bank, his accounts will be closed, then they have a precedent in this. So that's the point we are trying to look at it from, that in as much as they, first of all, let us even decide, is these things within, I mean, are they within the CBN's purview? CBN, just Tim said something, they might be doing it elsewhere, but under Nigerian law, do they have the wide powers? Do they have unbridled powers to regulate everything that has to do with money? So if we go to bank, we exchange, we whatever we do in the market, CBN can regulate it because money is involved. The legal profession, when they pay for our services, then CBN can always regulate it because money is involved. We can't give them, we can't afford to allow them that wide latitude. No, so their powers have to be delineated, and their powers have to be exercised within the confines of the law that established the bank. First of all, like I said initially, we still need to go back to decide what cryptocurrencies are. If they are not legal tenders, I think SEC should be allowed to regulate it. They could do it in conjunction with CBN, but we can't just be confused as a nation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Olumide, for that. And that brings the question then, is there need to be more what we call consolidated supervisions among financial sector regulators and supervisors of the various subsectors of the financial services industry, the banking sector, insurance, pension, and now this emerging fintech. So one can build, some sort of consensus, right? And we know that each of them will obviously have their own space and what they can do or cannot do, whether you're the guys who are responsible for legal tender or securities, etc. But because of how money moves and even non-cash financial instruments moves, etc., there is in many developed economies some sort of consolidated supervision. Of course, it goes all the way up to the legislation, right? They decide what needs to be done. But do you think that there, in this particular case, when you see that the central bank has come down and you're saying that this probably is not something that is under the central bank mandate, though the central bank is pretty much at the federal level, right, versus state level, etc. But you're saying the law probably does not allow them or enable them to do what was done. So speak about consolidated supervision, Mr. Davison, Mr. Olumide, and also Mr. Ihenye, I think his name, and sorry, Mr. Ihenyen. And let's see if our fifth speaker will come in. Go ahead, gentlemen.
So to quickly say something about this, I think Senator and Davidson, they muted this at the beginning. It is very important. Stakeholders and regulators need to be humble enough to come together and admit that this is a very technical area. It's an extremely technical area that keeps emerging, even in the world. It keeps emerging. So for Nigeria, and just like Tim said, Nigeria cannot afford to adopt the pattern like the CBN was quoting, China quoting. We can't afford to adopt the pattern of those countries because we have our own peculiar situation. In the past, in the recent times, cryptocurrency has even been helping the economy to a large extent. But maybe we won't be humble enough to admit that fact. But for whatever it is, I agree with you. The CBN, the banks, the stakeholders, the dealers, the exchanges need to come together and find out and fashion out what works for Nigeria. And with that, I think we'll be able to get out of this mess we have found ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is the point that has probably been pushed to some extent. It's very important that the regulators harmonize their position. Um, and can I say this because there was a committee that was set up by SEC maybe like 3 years ago to look into fintech as well as cryptocurrency and digital assets. That was a part of that committee. Funny enough, a few directors within the central bank were part of that committee. We looked at different jurisdictions and looked at what applied in those places. We spoke to cryptocurrency exchanges and their operators. We spoke to people in the blockchain space within Nigeria, got their perspective, came up with a roadmap. The understanding that we had was that that was the government's position. But I think it's important that the relevant agencies of government, even the NDIC, that is the insurance corporation, right, that insures the monies that are deposited with your typical banks, that insurance companies, are all contained in one body, so to speak, which was part of our recommendation as well, that let there be a one-stop shop where the different approvals will be gotten from the regulators that have to play in that space, so that one fintech is not now thinking, where do I go to? No, you just go to a particular desk and everything is sorted there. That's the kind of certainty that should come with the system. If the assets will be taxed, you know that you will be taxed, and you're going into that with the knowledge that this is what's going to happen. Most of the people that operate in the cryptocurrency space have been crying out for regulation. In fact, they've said, regulate us however you want to regulate us. Unfortunately, this is the direction of the CBN went. So I would say again, it should be reiterated that if the CBN lacks knowledge, then get that knowledge, understand what it is about. Nobody looks to China for directives or directions when you are trying to be flexible or trying to build your economy. China cannot be your reference point because we all know how they operate there. So collaboration, an understanding of the industry in itself, and then having that intergovernmental relationship that would make things work, I think is very crucial and critical, especially at this point, so that we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater when there really is nothing to throw away, actually.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Mr. Senator, would you like to say your final word, sir? Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. I think that it will be fine to say or bring to our attention that Nigeria or the Nigerian government at some point realized that blockchain technology could be applied in several sectors, including the financial services industry. And based on this, the Ministry of the Federal Ministry of the Digital Economy, Communication and the Digital Economy, worked with the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITSTA, to come up with the idea of a national blockchain adoption strategy. This is to ensure that all of the relevant sectors and industries and regulators and policymakers are in the same roundtable to discuss how Nigeria would go about adopting blockchain technology and its various applications across sectors and industries, so that we're all on the same page. In my capacity as the General Secretary of the Stakeholders in Blockchain Association of Nigeria back then, November 2020 to be precise, I was one of those who attended the stakeholder engagements. And it would interest you to know that one of the stakeholders in that roundtable is the CBN. The Securities and Exchange Commission is also there. The National Deposit Insurance Commission is also there. The Federal Inland Revenue Service Commission is in there as well. So it's a multi-stakeholder approach, and we are still sitting on that table. The CBN is part of this course, and so it is meant to bring everyone together so that we have some consistent policy, so that we can score the right policies in a developmental manner. And it's been great so far because industry stakeholders, for the first time, I know we are able to also contribute to policy developments, especially at this nascent stage. So this is what we expect. But this one from the Central Bank of Nigeria, of course, it's vividly and obviously inconsistent with that policy that we're trying to develop at the NITSTA level. That's the National Blockchain Adoption Strategy. So I would just like to say that there is need for more collaboration, just like my very learned friend David Ochu was saying. We need more collaboration in the space, and it should be about knowledge. I'd like to just round up by saying that anyone who is scared of cryptocurrencies and believes that the best way to escape it or to fight it is to deny its existence or to shut it out, it's going to be the biggest mistake you would ever make. Because the way we as stakeholders understand cryptocurrencies, it waits for no one. The way that cryptocurrencies are designed and structured, they do not need any consensus from any central government anywhere. It just keeps going. Well, it's about whether you want to come along or you want to stay back. And every smart country who understands this stuff, they always find a way to just find a middle ground so that they won't be left behind. This is about decentralization. It is about increasing democratization of global wealth. It's about participation. It's about financial inclusion. It's not just this regulation sitting somewhere so detached from the global or national economy. We respect the CBN to be a national driver as well in terms of the driver of the economy. And so regulation and driving the economy to create jobs and bring FDI inflows into the country, ensure sound financial systems, they are not exclusive. They are all one thing. And we are happy to work with all of the relevant stakeholders to ensure that Nigeria's interest is put first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As we come to the end of today's conference about cryptocurrency, digital assets, and the economic and legal ramification from the action, and I will not call it policy anymore, the action of the central bank government in Nigeria, we hope that there is actually the opportunity to engage all the various stakeholders, the banks, the cryptocurrency exchanges, the various lawyers from the industry, the other subsectors of the financial services industry, in collaboration again with a more consolidated approach to regulations and supervision of the financial services industry. And we hope that our audience was able to learn some things from what was shared by the various speakers. So special thanks to Mr. Davidson, Senator, and Mr. Olumide, as well as Tim Webb. And unfortunately, our fifth speaker, Mr. Iwu, was not able to make it through traffic, but we're hoping in part 2 of this discussion, he will be there, because we believe that the cryptocurrency exchange is a significant stakeholder in this business of fintech, cryptocurrency and blockchain, and we would love to hear, the challenges or opportunities, risk that the cryptocurrency exchanges are experiencing currently in Nigeria. This is Courtney Ashley Vaughan with In Conversation, and thank you, Mr. Liri Oshala and the ESQ Virtual Learning Academy for inviting us, and it has been a pleasure. And thank you for your questions, delegates, and the questions that were not answered. We will send those answers by email. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I must say this has been a really robust and insightful session. Thank you to all the speakers, to all the participants. I really appreciate all your input. A very big thank you to our sponsors, GLIS and Co. and Advocates Law Practice for making this webinar possible today. Thank you also to all the attendees for participating in today's webinar. Please note that our next web series titled Governance, Risk and Compliance Updates will be coming up on Wednesday, um, 17th of February, 21st of February by 1 p.m. I promise to be very informative. I promise it. I promise it to be very informative. As I mentioned earlier, registration is ongoing for our 12-week virtual distance learning course on power titled The Dynamics of Power Contracts, Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation and Project Financing, which commences on the 16th of February 2020. To get more information about all this, please send a mail to o.solanke@esq-law.com. And if you didn't get this, please check the chat for the email. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.